A woman raises a monster. She just touches the monster's shoulder gently. The monster seemed to sense something. He even reached out and tried to untie Elisa's shirt. Elisa panicked and ran out of the bathroom. But when she was ready to sleep, she started to miss the monster again. She took off her blindfold and silently looked into the bathroom. Then she decided to leave prejudices behind and undress and walk into the monster. Elisa wants to have sex with him. Elisa goes to work after this sexual encounter and still reminisces about it. A serious illness in her childhood had taken away her voice. For many years Elisa lived a lonely life. Elisa wakes up every morning and boils eggs. Then she would take a nice bath. Her life alone was exquisite. Elisa brushes her boobs. She makes a delicious breakfast. She goes to an artist's house downstairs before she goes out. He is one of her only friends. They chatted and watched TV together. Elisa is fascinated by the dance steps on TV. She can't stop thinking about dancing even when she's out of the house. She loved dancing. Every day Elisa walks past the window and looks at the red dancing shoes, but she never bought them. She just worked to survive. Elisa cleaned a secret government lab. Her co-worker Zelda is her other friend. Zelda helped her stand in line and check in every day. She chattered next to Elisa while she worked and makes her life a little less dull. On this day, that lab was on alert because a new experiment had arrived. Elisa was curiously looking at it when it was pushed in, but suddenly something hit the glass. People who had nothing to do with the experiment were thrown out of the lab. Elisa took one step and looked back 3 times. She seemed to feel the resonance of her soul at that moment. From that day on, Elisa's life went on as usual, but with a hint of anticipation. That day, while they were cleaning the toilets, the head of security in charge of the lab came in to use the bathroom. When they left, Elisa found blood on the sink where the stick was kept. That same day, the head security guard was attacked by a monster. He ran out covered in blood. Elisa and Zelda were sent to clean the lab. Elisa found 2 severed fingers while cleaning. Zelda ran out to call the supervisor. Elisa was sucked into the container next to her. The monster was inside this container. She tries to reach out, and the creature extends its hand. Just as Elisa was trying to communicate further, Zelda and the others came in. Later, Elisa would often find opportunities to see the monster in the lab. By now, the monster was out of the container and locked in the sink. Next to it, Elisa sat her day by the sink and peeled an egg. The monster poked its head out of the water and looked at Elisa curiously. He even stood up to take Elisa's egg. Just as he was about to get it, Elisa dodged the monster with a jerk. She carefully placed the egg at the edge of the sink in motion for the monster to take it. After thinking for a moment, the monster unceremoniously took the eggs and dived into the water. Now Elisa is happy. After she left, the monster came back out of the water and quietly examined the eggshells. The next day Elisa brought the eggs again. Not only that, she also played music. The monster silently reached out and took the eggs away. Elisa snickered and quietly turned off the music. The monster emerged seemingly displeased. Elisa gestured with her hand to show that it was music. A woman and a beast listened quietly. The music penetrated the heart at this moment. Later Elisa brought a row of eggs. She would play music and dance at the same time. The monster was watching her quietly. The woman and the beast would occasionally look at each other through the glass. Love was slowly spreading. They didn't notice that Dr. Robert, who was invited by the lab to study the monster, was quietly watching them from behind. In fact, Dr. Robert was a spy from abroad. After he discovered that the monster could communicate with humans, he immediately reported the matter to his superiors. He hoped that they could rescue the experiment as soon as possible. But what he didn't expect was that a change soon occurred. A monster was chained and kneeling on the ground. The man with a stun gun kept electrocuting the monster. The monster felt the pain and made a strange cry. The man listened but became more and more excited. He provocatively asked the monster if it was in pain or angry. The monster was furious but could not do anything about it. He could only be bullied by the man. A woman hiding in the house, listening to the sound of the pain is very shocking. The monster was in pain and prostrated on the floor. The security chief just stopped. Suddenly he found an egg on the ground and picked it up and looked around. Luckily, the general came over at that moment. He showed great interest in this monster, but so far the lab hadn't come up with any results. The general was impatient and wanted the lab to dissect the creature. Dr. Robert was impatient and strongly opposed, but the general has 5 stars on his shoulders, so he could do whatever he wanted to do. Dr. Robert had no say in the disposal of the monster. Elisa had no say in the matter. She thought about it for a long time, and then told the artist that she wanted to save the monster. Giles thought it was unbelievable and thought she was crazy. But Elisa was serious. She sees her lonely self in the monster. Elisa said the monster didn't think she was handicapped and dysfunctional. He was still very happy every time he saw Elisa. The empathy of the heart is more important than anything else. Elisa had waited too long for this man. Giles said yes to Elisa with a sigh. So Eliza started coming to the lab. She found a small door from the lab that led directly to the back unloading area. She and Giles discussed and came up with a plan. Meanwhile, Dr. Robert also informed his boss about this. It was too risky to rescue the monster, so his boss didn't agree. Instead, he gave Dr. Robert a bomb and a tube of poison. Even if they can't save the monster, they can't let it fall into the hands of the enemy. The next day, Dr. Robert went to the chief of security's office and wanted to try again to postpone the autopsy, but the captain did not agree with him. Dr. Robert accidentally looked up and noticed that there was something wrong with the security camera behind him. It turns out that Eliza went to the back door to adjust the angle of the security camera after she had made her plan. Then she went to the lab with a card to take the monster out. Dr. Robert was watching this scene from the darkness. He finally came out and startled Eliza, but he's actually here to help Eliza. Dr. Robert took out the key and unlocked the door. He also helped Eliza stuff the monster into the car. Finally, he took out a box and taught Eliza how to keep the monster. After Eliza left, Dr. Robert blew up the circuitry with a bomb. He gave the security guard a poison shot and let Giles in. Zelda was standing on the loading dock waiting for a friend. She noticed something was wrong when Eliza had set up shop earlier, but she didn't expect Eliza to be so bold. She had no choice but to help her friend. Giles pulled the car over. Giles was stunned the moment Eliza helped the monster stand up. They took the monster to the car and left with the gas pedal. By the time they got home, the monster was in a bad state of mind. Eliza put him in the bathtub, and it didn't make him feel any better. Remembering what Dr. Robert had said, she quickly grabbed the salt and poured it into the tub. Finally, the monster opened his eyes and woke up. Eliza and Giles are relieved. The general is furious that the monster has been stolen. Now Lap is put on alert like never before. Even a cleaner like Eliza was called to the head of security's office for questioning. They both acted as if nothing had happened. They stared at the captain without fear and managed to fool him. But Eliza knew that the monster had to be sent away as soon as possible. Dr. Robert had the same idea. That day he came to Eliza and gave her another box of mineral salts. Eliza looked at Dr. Robert and made a few gestures with her hands. She said that Dr. Robert was a good man. Eliza went to observe the weather and decided to let the monster go when the rain filled the canal and flowed to the sea. Eliza and the monster got along well during these days. They both felt each other's sincerity in the touch of their fingers. And so many things happened naturally. Eliza turned on the tap to drain the water and folded a towel and stuffed it in the doorway. Then she made a strange gesture to the monster. The monster understood the mute woman's meaning. Eliza then removed her clothes. The water gradually filled up and flooded over the monster and Eliza. Eliza took a deep breath and dived into the water. She holds the monster tightly and shares in the excitement and pleasure. Giles, downstairs, sensing something was wrong, came upstairs and saw the water on the floor. He slammed the toilet door open and saw the intoxicated woman and beast inside the toilet. He then silently closed the door again. Neither of them is surprised that Eliza's relationship with the monster has developed like this. With love in her life, Eliza's life has become more colorful. She bought the red shoes she had wanted for so long. She goes to work with a smile on her face. When Eliza goes to work, Giles is left to look after the monster. Except he was getting old and couldn't help but hiccup. The monster took the opportunity to get out of the bathroom. He was curious about everything in the world. He goes out and sees a painting and a cat on TV. The cat had never seen such a person before, and it couldn't help but be fierce. The monster also showed a fierce expression and even pounced on it. By the time Giles woke up, the living room was in shambles. The monster grabbed the cat and gnawed on it. When he saw Giles, he knew he was in trouble and left the cat behind and rushed out. His fingers also cut Giles. Giles held on and called Eliza. Eliza rushed back to find the monster. Luckily, the monster didn't get far but was absorbed by the movie in the theater. Eliza finds the monster and brings him home with gentle comfort. This time the monster was not aggressive when he saw the kitten again. He squatted down and played with the kitten. When Giles' wound is healed, he calls the monster over. The monster obediently let Giles touch his head. He also stretched out his hand and touched Giles' head. Then he put his hand over Giles' wound and looked very remorseful and guilty. The wound on Giles' hand miraculously disappeared a few days later as if it had never been injured before. With days of heavy rain, the day of the monster's departure was not far away. His health was getting worse and worse. Eliza and the others agreed to send him away tonight. This night was also the time for Dr. Robert to leave. His supervisor told him to pack his bags and said he would be escorted out. But Dr. Robert didn't realize that the head of security had already found out about his plans and was watching from under his door. Almost as soon as Dr. Robert left the house, the captain followed her. Dr. Robert arrived at his appointment with Eliza, but all that was waiting for him were a few bullets. At the moment Dr. Robert fell down, there was another shot from behind the car. It was the captain. He killed Dr. Robert's boss. It took Dr. Robert aside and asked him the truth about the monster's disappearance. The captain always thought that the special forces had taken the monster. Dr. Robert laughed when he heard that. He said that the man had no name and no rank. In a flash the captain remembered the anomaly of the two cleaners. He instantly became furious and felt he had been played. He rushes to Zelda's house and asks for Eliza and the monster's whereabouts. Zelda, despite being terrified, remained calm and refused to reveal a word. In the end, it was Zelda's husband who revealed all the secrets. He overheard Zelda and Eliza talking earlier and knew what was going on. The captain left. Zelda was angry, but time was of the essence. She called Giles' house to tell him about it. Eliza was informed and immediately took the monster to the pier. By the time the captain arrives, they're long gone. He saw the note on the calendar and went to the dock without stopping. Giles and the monster were touching each other's heads by the pier. That was their way of getting close and saying goodbye. Then the monster looked at Eliza with reluctance. He wanted to take Eliza with him, but Eliza gritted her teeth and turned away. The captain appeared and knocked down Giles and shot the monster. Then his bullet hit Eliza. It happened so fast. Everyone fell to the ground before they could react. The monster and Eliza struggled to hold each other's hands. The captain watched the scene with a smile, but did not notice that Giles behind him was getting up and hit him hard with a stick. Then Giles ran over to check on Eliza. But at this moment Eliza's eyes were tightly closed. The monster woke up and got up. His hand touched the wound and the wound disappeared. Extremely angry, he went to the captain. The captain was so frightened that he said the monster was a god. But the monster didn't give him a chance to say more and he lost his breath. Then he went back to Giles and picked up Eliza and jumped into the sea. Zelda and Giles, who came in a hurry, stood side by side and watched them go away in silence. The monster kisses Eliza tenderly after sinking into the water. The 3 wounds on Eliza's neck instantly turned into fish gills. They hugged each other tightly. No one can separate them again. In fact, both humans and animals are marginalized in this movie. Whether their feelings are love or friendship, they support each other's lives. They are as insignificant as dust, reflecting each other's loneliness. The bond in this world is also this form.